Greetings, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you today for this insightful session. This session is on the topic from startup to scale up lessons from a serial entrepreneur organized by CrAdLE, which is an incubation center of EDII Ahmedabad. This is in partnership with D2D Youth Story, which is a platform for all young innovators. Today, we have Dr. Sarthak Bakshi, who is the founder and CEO of RISA IVF, and he is also a Forbes 30 under 30 honoree. We are extremely honored to have him today as our speaker. Now, I am inviting Sarthak Bakshi, sir, who will enlighten us through his invaluable advice. Hello, sir.
Yes, hi, hi, how are you?
Yeah, completely fine. Thank you for asking. How are you?
All good, all good, all great.
Amazing. So, sir, we can start now.
Okay, so is the PPT visible?
No, can you please share the PPT? Have you shared the PPT, sir?
Yes.
Okay, I got your PPT.
Good. Yeah,
All
yeah. Shall I go ahead?
yes, sir. You can start. Mic is over to you.
Okay. Hi. So, guys, hi. Hope everybody's doing fine. Let me first introduce myself. My name is Dr. Sarthak Bakshi. I jokingly introduce myself as what do I do for a living? As I make babies. I produce babies 24/7, 365 days a year. And by that, I hope you understand that I am not the wiki donor. I'm the Dr. Chadda of the industry, and we run a chain of fertility centers across North India, Nepal, and Bangladesh. Apart from that, I also run an angel syndicate, having invested into 35 plus startups. The angel syndicate is known by the name of Neo's Angels, and we are doing ideation, pre-series A, and series, early series seed funding for startups up till of 1.5 cr into multiple startups. So that's what is the current scenario and what do I do currently. Apart from that, this is my third venture. I have failed twice, and I would like to tell each one of you that nobody can predict the success of your journey. Nobody can tell that what it would take to be successful. But if I'm here today and if I'm telling you about my journey, my purpose here is that I will tell you about my failures so that you don't do the same mistakes what I did. I don't know that what can be successful, what lies in the future. Is it generative AI? Is it machine learning? Is it cloud computing? What all? There are so many things that are changing, and happening things fast. But I can tell you the business fundamentals of the mistakes that I made, so that you don't make those same mistakes. So let me start ahead by that. And I am not sure that if you can ask questions in between this conversation, but I would love this to be a communicative talk, and and get responses from you if you have something and if you can share something. So first of all, I started my journey right fresh out of college. I had done my computer engineering and I had started pursuing making games for iPhones, iOS, and this is back in 2010. Back then, uh, Android was a free platform, and we did not have any paid software on Android. It was completely iOS, which was having a paid support, and people were buying apps out of them. So I started making games on iOS. Um, More than that, we our first game had 1 million downloads, so 10 lakh downloads to be precise. So there was money that I had made. From there, I had a big team of 30 people back in 2010 of game artists, sound artists, level designers, graphic artists, multiple UI, UX users, which was unheard of. But that was not the major problem. I got success in my first game, but the next 28 games were flopped. For the next 28 applications were flogged. I will not say, okay, that could be a creative issue that you're not creative enough, fast enough. But the major issue, the biggest issue that I felt, or what was my biggest learning from my failure when we had to shut down the company, was that we were not equipped to handle the Apple ecosystem. My whole business was around Apple. iOS, as I said, I was making game from iPhone. I had to similarly make the same game for iPad. And at the same time, my iPad game should also be compatible on iPod. Three different Apple devices working on three different operating systems, having three different graphics, having three different testings. So it was not, and this is again 2010. Now you can say probably it's easier, but back then Apple was changing the system as fast and we were not able to keep up for it. So to summarize, to get the long story short, is we were not able, the ecosystem that we were dependent on, we were never able to keep up with it. We were not in tune with it, and we were not in synchronized manner that the changes that they were doing and as fast as they were doing, can we keep up with them or not? So when we were failing at that, it led eventually to the company's downfall. Any business will have its own operational challenges, will have its financial challenges, will have the marketing challenges, will have operational issues. Those are common. But is there is something called as an ecosystem support, or when there's something called as that your dependency are the master of that data that you're doing. That was my first key learning, that I wasn't a master or part of that data. And what I learned in that was that unless and until I control the narrative and I control the environment, there is no point that I should enter into that business. I'll give you an example of a very common and a good friend that I have. There's a startup. There was a startup called Witty Feed, which was doing very well. It was done by my friend Vinay, and eventually, what happened with that startup was one fine day, and they were doing pretty well, by that time. If you can even go back 3 4 years back, one fine day, it was a business built out of Facebook. Just one surprising day, Facebook shut down their page and the whole business was lost within one day. You can keep mailing it, you can keep doing it, but that was the funny scenario. And to give you the most recent example, and this is what you would see. I mean, this is again a controversial thing, but the Ranveer Alawadia show, the beer bicep show, one fine day, if YouTube decides to completely cancel out any content creators, any influencers, or any podcast creators' business, it just takes them one button and your whole business goes down the drain. You would have seen, apart from the controversy and apart from whatever the topic was, I am talking on the fact that their complete dependency is on one thing. And if they feel, probably these big content companies or big giants such as YouTube, Google, Facebook, the Metas of the world, the Amazon, that there is something that you're not liking, your empire, your complete business fundamental, your sense will completely go off. So in that sense, please always have the ecosystem under your control. Don't be retrospectively, in the sense, be controlled by the ecosystem, that your business, whatever you put in, the hard work, the years of hard work that you put in, can completely go away. So that's my real life story of how I cannot keep up with my ecosystem. And you always know that there is this harsh reality that 90% of the startups fail within, and this is an over exaggerated statement. I would say there would be more than 95%, because you don't even get to know probably 70% of the startups, that they, when did they start, when did they finish. But this is the harsh reality. The amount of funding that people are raising would probably one in 1,000 startup. The other 999 is completely unaware of, unsynchronized of. To just go a step back, I would say that there is a little fault between a normal thought process of what a startup is and what a business is. If I open up a restaurant, or if I open up a shop and I'm selling something, would you call that a startup? People do, because it's cool. It's cool to say that you're doing a startup, but eventually it's not a startup. It's a business. It's as simple a business, but everybody will call it a startup because that's the buzzword, that's the in thing, and that's what makes you sound cool, and that's what probably everybody around you feels, oh, he's doing a startup. But eventually, if it's a very normal a shop, a kirana ka dukan, a restaurant, a laundry thing, whatever you're doing, if it's a business, it's meant to be a business which is profitable within a certain period of time. So, where do we differ between a business and a startup? And that's a question that all of you should fundamentally think about, that are you in the industry to do a business or do you do a startup? For me, and this is my definition, where I feel that a startup is meant for something that you want to scale through technology exponentially and in a very short span of time. That is what a startup is. If I have to hire 100,000 salespeople to and open up offices across the world, that is not a startup for me. That's a pro business. But if I can do the same thing without hiring that many people, without opening that many offices, and having that sales force, and I want to reach to the masses within that 2, 3, 4 short period of time, for me, that's a startup. Using technology as an enabler. Technology is not the startup, but it's the enabler. So that's the fundamental difference between a startup and a business from my side. So when we've understood what is that, what are you looking for uh, in a startup, these are some fundamental things which each and every one of you are now probably aware of, that what do you exactly look in a startup, from making a viable product, doing your testing, doing your research, doing your MVP, and then moving forward. Fundamentally, I have probably gone to, I think, more than 300 or 400 colleges and spoken on entrepreneurship. And the biggest mistake that I see between all young people and between everyone is that everyone starts executing the idea within the get go. You know, do not make that mistake. Do not go on making the website, executing the idea, making the product, unless you feel that yes, you have cracked, or whatever you are doing is the right thing and you're moving in the right direction. I ask this question a lot, that do you feel that you require crores of rupees to initially start up? Do you think that can you actually validate the idea? If we have to just fundamentally talk about validating the idea, do you feel can we actually get to know if our idea has certain merit or not by thousands or early lakh rupees? Is that much short amount of money required just to get the know-how? And if you get a positive response, if there are 50, 100, 200 people giving you a thumbs up in that direction, then go ahead on the execution. People skip this thing because they're so in love with their idea that, oh, I have thought about this, I saw this, I researched this, and I went ahead. That's the worst thing to do. Unless you are testing or making your MVP. And by an MVP, please go to YouTube, please, use ChatGPT. An MVP is just a minimum viable product. You don't need to make the app, you don't need to make the website, you don't need to do a prototype, a small little sample of whatever you're trying to do, either a product or a service or an ideation that you're trying to, come into the market and trying to validate. You can just utilize, YouTube videos or ChatGPT or Google and make that prototype. Get that prototype to at least 400, 500 people. And I thoroughly believe that reaching out to 400, 500 people in this day, in 2025, it's extremely easy. You have LinkedIn, you have WhatsApp, you have other Instagram, so many social media tools, that reaching out to 500 people is the easiest thing. Even out of those 500 people or 1000 or 100 people, if your family and friends are supporting you, if they're actually giving you a thumbs up, it's good, it's going ahead. you know I always say that it's not the lack of resources, it's a lack of resourcefulness. If you are resourceful, you will figure out a way on how you can get to the market and validate your idea. If you are not resourceful at all, then you will constantly say these lack of resources, I never got this opportunity, I did not figure it out, I could not reach out. For me, if I was in your shoes, if I have to start validating something, if I have to start early, I will do the business model canvas exercise. This is the best exercise to give you a complete overview of what you're trying to build, how you're trying to build, who will your customers be, what will your target audience be, what you need to do, who are your competitors, your SWOT analysis, everything. Business model canvas. That's the minimum metric. After that, I will probably make a little prototype or little sample and just, probably advertise it. How much money do you know? And I've done this with a few pilot projects. I have spent 100 rupees a day on Instagram ads, nothing else. Facebook, Instagram ads, 3,000 rupees per month was my budget, just to see if people are clicking it, liking it, not liking it. Am I getting no response? My budget was 10,000 rupees to get to know if there is some worth in the idea or not. That was it. There was nothing else. It's as simple as that. 10,000 rupees was the only maximum amount of money that I spent on a pilot to know if certain people are actually even clicking on the idea to understand what it is, or they're showing completely no interest. I figured out this golden mantra: if I can make money without any money, then I can definitely make a lot of money when I get some investors' money. In short, if I can actually earn 500 rupees when I'm spending 10,000 rupees of marketing, then I'm extremely sure that I can earn 5 crore rupees when I get somebody's investment, or when I invest a huge amount of money. That is the validation that I'm trying to give you, and I'm trying to tell you that do not go on into execution, and do not think that you require a lot of money before you are starting up, or there is no success unless you do that. There's always the need for money, will always be there. I am not denying that fact, that if you are going into execution, if you want to scale your product, if you want a pan India, pan Delhi startup, or if you whatever your ideas, you require money, you require everything. There is no dearth of that. But before starting up, is your idea worthful, validful? Do you actually want to spend, you know lakhs and crores of rupees, and then get to know, oh, there was never a market for it? I'm trying to create, you know I'm just trying to create, sell by marketing more. The unit economics funda, which was that, okay, let's just spend money, let's just do marketing, and let's get sales, even if we are losing money on every order. And that's what happened with all these e-commerce companies, Shopcluse, Snapdeal, and all sorts of these investments. You would say that, whenever they started, they would no something. And coming to the point of ideation, do not think that your idea is going to be the same when you're scaling up. From idea, whatever the idea is, the product evolution, nobody knows the product evolution. And I'm listing down examples in front of you right now, and these are the examples of the companies which have made big. Paytm never started as a wallet, or as the Paytm that we use this day. It started as a mobile recharge service back in 2010 or 8. Whenever it started, it was meant for that. And when the opportunity was there, when demonetization came, when everybody had to use a QR code, Paytm was there to seize on an opportunity, evolve its product, and become the mobile wallet, which probably would not have worked before demonetization came into being. And I can give you thousands of examples like that. Zomato. What do you see Zomato now as the big company, as someone delivering orders, having acquired Blinkit, delivering your groceries to your doorstep, all of this. This was unheard of when it started. It started in 2008 as a restaurant scanning app. If you wanted to know what was the menu of a restaurant, that is what Zomato was. It was just simply giving you the menus of each restaurant, nothing else. When the time came, when delivery became, when probably Swiggy entered the market, it was there to seize the opportunity. That is how all startups have evolved. Nobody starts with everything figured out. Nobody's perfect. Nobody knows what would this exact solution be. You need to keep perfecting your pitch and perfecting your idea as you keep moving along, as what the market is telling you, whatever feedback you're getting it from, you can keep getting that. So when I get to speak to students who are constantly saying that we have probably figured out, we have probably thought the idea, we have got this validation, we have done this, my only question to you is, I was not lucky enough in 2010, 2012, or 2014, when the startup ecosystem was not that developed. But now in 2025, you have accelerators, you have incubators, you have startup cohorts, you have multiple ecosystem partners ready to support you. The government has multiple schemes, MSME India grants, the SIDBI grants, the other incubators, all colleges are having DPIT grants. There are so many things which are out there now to support you. What I feel is a lack of conviction. If people constantly keep on saying that we do not get the support that we want, our idea is perfect. Oh, we have just figured out everything. We just require 5 crore rupees or 10 crore rupees, or or whatever X millions of amount of dollars, and we will be the next unicorn. Whenever I get this, my only simple question to you is, if I am ready to say give you, just for a hypothetical case, I'm ready to give you 5 CR. Let me say I'm going to get you 5 CR, and but in that I will take your house on loan. You have to mortgage me. I don't care the value of your house is 4 crore or 1 crore, but you'll have to give it to me. And if you're not able to give me back my money, you will. 99.9% of you, or 999 out of 1,000 people, will never take that risk. It is as simple as that. That the risk versus reward cycle is completely, will always be in your favor if you are taking your, if you know your product, if you know your service, if you think that you figured it out, then please, there are banks who can give you loan. Go ahead with it. There is your money, there's your family and friends money, there's everything. But if you're not ready to take a risk on yourself, because you're afraid that only once I get an investment and only then I'll move, you will never be a successful entrepreneur. I mean, just to give you a example of that, I constantly ask everyone out there, how do you know how much debt is there on Mr. Ambani and Mr. Adani, another two big businessmen of India? If you take a wild guess of how much money they need to give back to banks or institutional investors or to the public markets or whatever they have taken on themselves, do you have any idea of what that amount is? You'll be surprised to know it's upwards of 3 lakh crores, 3 with 12 zeros beyond it. That's the amount of money that each of them have it on their books as debt. That is how fundamental they believe their business is, that even if they've taken that much money and they need to return it, it's not an investment from everyone. It's a public liability that they need to do. But that's the amount of risk that they are taking to actually grow up and to actually, leverage the idea that they believe, they fundamentally have faith in. So whenever I ask any youngsters that, do you fundamentally believe in your idea, or is it the coolness factor that you just want to do and go global? You need that much amount of risk taking capability. A successful entrepreneur and a normal entrepreneur, the fine line dividing them is the risk. RISK. That's the biggest differentiator between the most successful entrepreneur, a lesser successful entrepreneur, and the least successful entrepreneur. Once you go there, once you figure that out, there is nothing else to be done. Now, moving ahead, what I feel is that there are fundamental things, when you need to, when you're figuring out your idea, your startup, how do you go for it? How do you identify? You need to apply the Pareto rule, which is the 80-20% rule. How do you connect with customers? How do you do this? So I have this fundamental question that, with for a lot of people that I asked it, that do you think that the product or service that you have created, is it going to be better than your competitor? For example, let me take the bigger examples: McDonald's versus Burger King versus someone. Do you believe that the McDonald's burger is the tastiest, is the crispest, is the the most ROI, in terms of, in 50 rupees you get the biggest size? What do you think is what separates McDonald's from any other competitor? And when you're thinking about it, please don't think in today's scenario. McDonald's is in 1980s, 70s. It's a very old chain. What did they do differently back then is what made McDonald's so successful and a $200 billion plus company? The answer is McDonald's was never into burgers. It was the speed of service. Back then, when McDonald's started, it was giving burgers within 30 seconds, whereas the normal norm for a restaurant was say 20 minutes. If your order was ready between anywhere between 15 to 30 seconds, that was completely unheard of. The speedy kitchen is what they invented. It was never about the tastiest burger, the biggest burger, the smallest burger, everything. It was about the speed of service. That is what McDonald's did. You can have multiple examples, again and again. This is what I'm trying to tell you, that do not try and differentiate your product or your service constantly on the product itself. Ki my product is cheaper, my product is longer, my product is better, my product is bigger, smaller. You can never be able to win an argument or make a startup based on that ideology. You need to sell an experience and not the product. Another example, every one of you wears watches, okay? So is Rolex better than Timex, or is Rolex better than you know Casio, any other Tag Heuer, or any other watches? It's never about the watch. Rolex never says that we use this, we use that, we are using a crystal, so we are better, sharper, or it's simple. Rolex is selling you heritage. It is not telling you that we are the best watch, but it's telling you a luxury out there that if you're wearing this, you are a heritage person. It's the idea that they are selling it to you. Similarly, Harley Davidson, is it a better bike than your Bajaj, your TVSs, your Heroes, or even any other out there? Harley, whenever Harley sells it to you, the concept that it's selling you with is, if you drive a Harley, you're driving with passion, or you're free. You're a free bird, you become a man, you become a macho man if you drive a Harley. And it's, that's how what you feel is, what differentiates Harley. And I can go in and go on and on with these examples, between Coke and Pepsi, between Apple and Android. Do you ever feel, just to give this example, does Coke ever advertise, oh, drink Coke? When you open Coke, it is going to be more crisper taste, it's lighter on your stomach, it has more fizz. I will give you, for 10 rupees I will give you 250 ml, whereas Pepsi will give you 300 200 ml. Will you ever see advertisements of those sort? No, never. Because if you're trying to differentiate your product again on price, quantity, product valuation, you will never be able to win. Both of them figured out. And that's why, if you, and right now, now that I've told you, if you focus on their advertisement, you would see this golden mantra from Coke is, whenever you've seen an ad, open a bottle of Coke, open a bottle of happiness. Their representation of why you should buy a Coke, their advertising, whenever you feel happy, drink Coke. That's the idea, that's what they're giving you. Again, that's the experiences that they're selling you. Similarly, an Apple phone, it's upwards of 1 lakh rupees now. Why does everyone want an Apple phone? Because it's a status symbol, it's an aspirational value. I have an Apple phone, but I would never say that its camera is better, its life is better, it has the best battery life, or it does not hang, this and that. I believe Oppo, Vivo, Xiaomi also have the same features, probably better. They have better picture quality, better everything, but they would be one third or one fourth of an Apple phone price, because it's a brand, it's a status symbol. So, just to sum it up, go for, when you're thinking of your product or whenever you're thinking about your idea, think about selling an experience and not the product. Once you figure that out, there is, you have won half the battle over there. The other half is still the business fundamentals, but half the battle is won over there. So what would be, as we're coming near to the end, let me just provide, what are the common mistakes that you're going to avoid? First, do not start scaling. I really need to, my India, my plan is all across India. I need to set up offices, start selling here, there. Focus on one city, one area, become a market leader over there, then expand. I can give you thousands of other examples of in front of you WeWork, which was a pan global chain. If the business fundamental was not there, they're going to crash and burn everywhere, which they did. Zomato opened up multiple offices, but when they were struggling in India, they had to close it all down and focus on the India business, double down its bet, and start acquiring Blinkit and focus on the Indian market itself. They closed down from New Zealand, Dubai, Ultimate, most of the places. Similarly, in Amazon, when they figured out the fundamental that okay, from books we can move on to selling this, from this and that, when you figured out that model, now let's expand to other countries. Let's go to India, let's go to Germany, let's go to Australia. That's how. Do not start scaling unless you have the business model figured out and unless you have positive cash flows. That's when you come to the next point, that your cash flows matter more rather than the GMV. In our startup ecosystem, when we started, it was all about GMV, gross merchandise value, the total sales. Nobody was focusing on the unit economics. As I said earlier in this talk, that if I was selling for 1 rupee and I'm spending 3 rupees to sell for that 1 rupee, it was earlier all right because everybody was okay, get market share, do just sales. I am having 1,000 crore sales, but I'm spending 3,000 crores to achieve those 1,000 crore sales. When investors were probably pumping in money and when they were acquiring, when they were looking for this, just this revenue multiple, it was right then. But what COVID had taught, what this funding winter has taught, what everything has taught finally is that you cannot endlessly keep doing that, probably just to get market share, probably to get your word out. It is a strategy fine for a short time, but eventually down the line, and for any business to sustain, you need to have a positive cash flow. You cannot spend 2 rupees or 3 rupees to earn 1 rupee. You need to spend only zero point 0.5 rupees or zero point 0.1 rupees and have a profit. So getting those positive cash flows is very, very necessary. And the third most important thing is whatever we have understood is no idea is safe. No service, no product you can constantly think of that I cannot be beaten. I have done this. There are technology is changing as fast as possible, and I like to delve a little bit on that. That how you have prime examples in front of you: Nokia phone, the Kodak cameras, multiple other things. Which were never there. That you were not agile enough to change it. You were not necessary for that. So I'll give you an example that. Say taxis in our time, when I was a kid, the only way to get a taxi was to go down, stand on the road, wave your hands like crazy, stop a taxi, negotiate, bargain. I need to go from here to here. How much will you charge me? Negotiate and then go, which was a hassle. The evolution from that was not direct Uber or Ola. We did not evolve from there to there. There was a technology gap. The evolution from that was called a satellite cab, like a Meru, an Easy, and other cab services, which were like you would call them, you will give them a time that I need a cab 6 hours and I need to go from point A to B. So they have figured it all out. Okay, it's a pre-booking advance system. That was the evolution from your normal taxis, which called satellite taxis. We went from that to that, and from there we were fundamentally waiting for a technology through which Uber, Ola, taxi for short, and the other industry came. And that technology was Google Maps. The API for Google Maps was made available. Google made its technology free for everyone to use, on which everything was developed. So unless you were agile, and this is the time when people were not agile. Why was I probably thought Meru, Easy Cabs, other satellite taxis, they were fundamentally stuck onto that business model that they could not grab this Google API thing opening up and Maps API opening up and utilizing that. They already had a fleet of cabs. Uber came in with fierce competition, and Ola came in. They were able to disrupt that market. And you would see so many other examples in similar way. Apple came with the first smartphone. BlackBerry was there, Nokia was there, the other giants of that industry were there, but probably them, they were so gung ho with feature phones, with MMS technology, with having a flip phone, All of that was so much enough for them that they never thought any smartphone would, any company could come and develop a smartphone and the world would change. They were not agile and they were not ready to probably accept that the technology can move so fast. And 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, you could see these billions of dollars, zillions of dollars going waste just because of that. There are multiple more examples, of one similar technology change which completely innovated the idea and changed it. So, you know, Airbnb, Amazon, all of these companies have thrived upon just the limited availability and pricing options given to customers. Not all innovation, not all discovery, not all there has to be inventions. There can be just the convenience given to a customer in terms of price fairness, in terms of market competition, in terms of the availability and the reviews. Even if you're able to get this feedback mechanism better for customers, your startup will be a hit. Yelp is there. Amazon has thrived on that. Multiple startups was just are this based on this, that they opened up the market, they made the market more transparent, and that is what people led to buying from there rather than the other method. So you would see multiple such examples of there. And the fourth and the final thing is, you need to have best friend, or whoever your co-founder is, he or she should be your best friend, someone that you share your utmost secret with, and someone that you can rely on for anything. There should not be a day when you have to doubt your co-founder's decision. If your co-founder has said that we are going to do this sort of marketing and you want to spend this, you have to completely support it. And vice versa, if you feel that your co-founder has done something, or you have decided to go on to this path, that we need to expand here, we need to do so much of financing things in this, your co-founder has to support. It has to be more cordial than a husband-wife relationship. I'll tell you why. Because a husband and wife, if they fight, they have to go on to the same bed at the end of the day, and they're together at home, so they can sort out their issues. But between a co-founder, and I've seen this through multiple startups myself, that between a co-founder, if there is some sort of discrepancy, if there is some sort of animosity, your startup is now going for failure. So choose a co-founder who you can completely rely on and who you can do this. You need to build that company culture. Everybody should be having that same positive mindset, having that same enthusiasm, and working for growth. Do not ever think that uh, growth is constant. Growth can never be constant in today's fast-paced competitive world. If you need to make a product or your service, if you need to scale that, it has to be constant innovation and constant striving. The last thing, as I was saying, that technology, how do you understand technology, is now a key in all startups. Technology does not necessarily mean that your startup is pure tech, that or it has some sort of AI algorithm embedded and you have to be an IITN or someone from Harvard or Stanford to develop that. No, never. You need to utilize technology to keep scaling. You need to utilize technology to make decisions better, faster, easier. If you're doing that, you're in the right scenario. So example is, there was a service called Blockbuster in the US, which was like a DVD renting thing, that you could order any movie, anything, and a DVD would come. The story is good in sense that Blockbuster was killed by Netflix. And what did Netflix do? Now, the common assumption would be that, oh, Netflix came with online streaming and who would start renting DVDs, and Netflix completely innovated the market. No, this isn't the thing. Netflix, if you don't know, again, this is my example of telling you that every product evolves. Netflix also started as a DVD renting service. They were doing the same thing. They were renting the DVD with just one simple change from Blockbuster. That one simple thing was, they stopped the ridiculous amount of late fees being charged for the people returning the DVDs. Blockbuster was charging an enormous amount of late fee if you are not giving this DVD or CD back on the desired time that you said. Just this one simple process change was enough to kill Blockbuster, and people started taking Netflix DVDs from Netflix. And that's how Netflix became Netflix. And obviously, when the time of online streaming came, and when more things moved on and people started consuming content on YouTube, and Netflix was able to analyze that, they were agile enough to change and move on to the system. That's how they utilize technology. Similarly, Apple, when Apple Music came, and this is again 90s or early 2000s, probably early 2000s, the biggest difference, what Apple, Spotify, and all of these things did was one thing. Um, the biggest difference was Apple just made one thing. If I wanted to buy something, I needed to buy the whole CD, or I needed to buy the whole music album. Apple just did one simple change, that if you wanted to, like, if you like one song from the whole array of songs, just buy that. No need to buy the full length DVD. No need to buy the full music album or the cassette or something. If you like one song out of these 15 songs, buy that. And that is what is the innovation Apple did in the music industry. So the role of technology, again and again, I would constantly tell you that technology itself is not the disruptor. Not being customer centric is the biggest threat to any business. So whenever you're thinking, think from a customer standpoint of view. What does the customer need? If I am able to provide it through the role of a technology, I am able to do it better. Last, we have, as I said, I'm not here to tell you today what is successful, or what can be successful, or what will be successful. I am here as a mentor and an advisor, and someone as a friend, to help you understand that please don't make these mistakes. Or what can I teach you from my experience, having been in business for 15 plus years, having invested into so many companies, having seen other people's failures, having seen my own failures, having seen success. It is always necessary that you choose a mentor. You choose someone who you can discuss with, who you can analyze with, who you can strategize with. So there is, please find a mentor and advisor, as it's a very important thing for you to understand. So we already talked about how do we need a strong business model, the revenue thing. Uh, I said, in during my startup journey, as I said, first startup, I haven't shared my second startup for you, and I think we're short of time that I don't hear that. But as I said, and I've seen multiple startup founders going through this thing, you won't be successful the first time. 99.9% of us, and I'm talking about normal human beings like yourself and myself, we are never successful the first time. It takes probably the second, the third, the fourth time. We are not outliers like Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerbergs, or who our first idea was successful. Consider yourself as a normal human being who learns, gets up after the failure, right, dusts himself and says, okay, I'm ready for the next challenge, because I figured out. Money will be lost, time will be lost. You might probably get a lot of slack from your parents, your friends, and a lot of people would say, oh, we already told you so, that this idea is not meant, or you will be failure. But this is what makes a winner different from everyone else. You need to have that mental fortitude that, okay, I did something, I was wrong, I admit to it. What I understood, what my mistakes was, these were my setbacks, these are my failures, I will not repeat them again. It's an age old saying, fail fast, fail quickly. And it's just meant that you do not keep delving onto your mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, and someone who does not make mistakes is not a human being. If we are humans here today and we are here to learn, we get up, and a successful entrepreneur just does not repeat those mistakes and moves on. So please be wary of the fact that your first startup might not be successful. There's 99% chance of it that you might see some sort of failure, but you will eventually move on and build a successful product. So, sustaining long term growth, what does it take? Being customer centric, that's it. Be very focused on building a customer centric brand, and you selling experiences. Two key mantras which I have understood during my journey is everything else technology, your at the infrastructure, the amount of free coffees, food, anything, they are not going to serve unless I am putting customer as number one priority, and I'm selling an experience rather than the product. Those are the number two things that what for me has sustained our long term growth. So, final words of advice, guys, to everyone is be resilience, be mentally strong. You should never stop learning. Execution is always going to be the key, and keep innovating. Be agile. Don't get stick to one thing that okay, I have figured this out. You need to constantly keep innovating. Thank you. Thank you for listening patiently, and hope I was a bit of a help to all of you, and hope I was able to clarify and give my through my journey you'll be able to learn something.
Amazing session, sir. Amazing. And we have a few questions. So should I just speak it up to you?
Sure.
Okay, yeah. So first is,
Guys,
as you can see on your screen, yeah.
how do you engineer transition into a field that lies on the intersection of biomedical science and biotechnology? How you engineer transition? Okay, how did I? No, so as I said that my first startup was an engineer, and you would constantly see that everybody says follow your passion. If even 1% of us can figure out what our passion is, it's extremely good enough. 99% of the people are born, die without knowing what their passion is. So I will not say that my passion is IVF or my passion is in the fertility industry. It was probably never meant to be. I was an engineer, and my passion even did not lie in making or doing coding. Probably that's why I wasn't a great programmer and all the iPhone apps and everything that we were developing. But when I was there, I had, as I told you during my journey, we were not able to adapt with the ecosystem. What did I learn from my failures? I started a laundry startup. I failed in that also. In the third startup, I required something that, okay, there are good fundamentals of business that I have probably figured out. What kind of marketing needs to be done, what is the infrastructure needs to be created, how do I keep a finance, a positive cash flow. But where does the probably the expertise lie? So my mother was an IVF specialist who was working in a hospital. That's where I teamed up with her that I just require your clinical expertise. Just give me as an IVF specialist your clinical expertise, and rest everything I will take care of it. How do you create an IVF centers? How do you create a business model around it? Where do you get the patients from? Where do you do marketing? Where do you do the financing from? How do you get loans to patients? All the other plethora of things I will manage. But as long as I know the clinical expertise part is taken care of, there's no need of that. So that is how my transition came from an engineering perspective into this IVF industry. Is I figured out that I cannot be present everywhere and everywhere. What am I lacking and what are my strengths? I figured out on my strength, and what I was lacking, I found a co-founder who would be complementing me on my weaknesses, and that's how this idea started.
Amazing, sir. It was truly very amazing to learn how we can diversify ourselves by bringing co-founders from different fields who can complement our skill sets. Yeah. And we have another questions. It will be presented on your screen soon enough.
Your IVF clinics is almost in every tier one, tier two city. What technology enables Risa IVF to stand out in such an unorganized market with a successful scalable lineup? So it's again, as I said, technology does not differentiate us. Um, I'll give you a very easy example to understand that the machines or the equipments that we have, all the other IVF centers have the same one. There is no differentiation between the equipments or the machines or the technique per se. There is no evolution happening in IVF, the technology wise. So how do you differentiate us? Is not the technology, and I've constantly kept on saying throughout my talk is technology is not the disruptor. I just use technology to be better organized and better scalable and do better systems and processes. What differentiates us is completely different, is understanding what a customer needs. Can my customer afford my service or not? If not, what can I do for them? Does my customer, if we fail them in the first cycle, what can I do with them for them to be with us only and not move on to the other center? What can my I do for my customer if he or she or they are not able to reach to us? What do we do with that kind of technology? Do we do telemedicine, tele IVF? What can? So again, being customer centric, technology just helps me achieve those things. But will technology only, because there's nothing patented about the technology. I can't patent any technology and tell someone not to do that. It's again, I'm going back to the same example. The smartphone was developed by Apple, but did that mean when they brought the touch screen, can Samsung, Oppo, Vivo, Xiaomi not use the touch screen? Everybody brought touch screen after that, and everybody stick to it. So it's never that that touch screen could have just made someone and brought someone. So technology will help me in doing better things, doing things faster. But I need to figure out my differentiations or my USPs from other IVF centers from a different standpoint, from by being customer centric. That is what differentiates us.
Fabulous point, sir. And sir, could you please discuss some more points about the early days of Riza IVF?
No, so I would say that I will just take the second example of when I started my laundry startup. After that, so what we were doing is, we were very happy, and I shifted to Pune after that because Pune had a lot of student population, still does, and a lot of MNCs and IT crowd. So I felt there are a lot of people who are troubled from their buying, who would even if you have washing machine in your house, but nobody's taking the pain of putting the clothes in their washing machine, putting the powder in it, and waiting for 45 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour, taking the clothes out and drying it. Nobody will do that, since you have help. And the problem was that the help was never on time, or probably would not clean the clothes well, would probably not do the good job of cleaning up, as you remember. And I painted this picture of a dhobi ghat in my mind, कि वो पटक पटक के कपड़े धो रही है. And that's what, that you're spoiling my 5,000 rupees jeans is being spoiled by that. So this is around 2012. I painted this picture and we started a laundry startup that we very valiantly, within one day we will come and take your clothes, wash it, clean it, dry it, press it, and then return it back to you. We'll also have a ribbon on top of it and a 5 rupees chocolate like a munch or a Kit Kat on top of it. So we had this thing going for us. Seems very fancy, seems very easy to do, but that is 2012 and I'm in 2025. And I constantly keep on saying this: there is not a single pan India laundry startup. Unlike Zomato, Swiggy's, Ubers, Olas, Flipkart, Amazon, even Cult Fit, gyms, I cannot go to Bangalore and say, oh, if my clothes are dirty, I have something that can, wash within one day. Or I can go to Kolkata or Raipur or Mumbai. There's no pan India laundry startup. Come to think of it, I'm giving you $1 billion idea, but nobody's been able to do this. So the good question, the good thing to learn from here, and the thing to learn from my failure here was when I started this in 2012. We started this because we were fascinated by what was happening in the West. This idea was going around in the West. It had received millions of dollars. There were 5, 6 startups which had received huge amount of funding. And our again basic premises was that the Kam Wali Bhai or whoever was washing your clothes not doing a good job and you're troubled by them. But the fundamental problem in our idea was that even if Kantabai is not there, there is Shantabai, then there's Rantabai, there's some or the other person at the same cost or a cheaper cost ready to replace them. We were gung ho that we are going to solve this challenge with technology, assuming that as I said, the business problems will always be there. There were operational problems, there were marketing problems, there were finance problems. But the fundamental core problem was, can you replace cheap Indian labor with technology in India? I understood that after 2 years, after burning a lot of money, after time, that no, do not try to replace cheap Indian labor with expensive technology. Does not work in India. If it was the other way around, if it's an expensive technology, if it's a cheap technology and cheap labor, probably, or if the technology is costing negligible and the labor is expensive, It's like telling someone, to do something on the computer and you're doing it manually. So it's way easier to do it on the computer, and the technology is way cheap. Where the person, even if his salary is 40,000, it's going to take a lot of time. When we are trying to replace any human centric behavior with machine, but if the either we are not reducing the cost, or we are not reducing the time, or we are not making it easy, then that won't be successful. And we were doing that, and this is my failed learning experience, which I'm telling you, that please don't do the same mistake. Not every idea which works great in the West will work in India, because you have to think from an Indian point of view, from an Indian ecosystem, if your idea or service is based here. That is my second biggest learning. And I am, probably proud and, uh, sad to say that I've learned this, but I've learned it the hard way. If someone could have told me, probably I would have saved a lot of money. But retrospectively, we are 12, 13 years down the line. Nobody has been able to solve that challenge for us till now also. So there is still scope. Anybody that can figure this model out, please be, I'm more than welcome to support them in their idea. So that is the thing.
And sir, following the same point, as you said, like what works in West would not work in India. So since India is a pretty big country with a very diverse background of peoples, so is it wise to divide India into multiple parts and target one part at a point of time?
It's always better to break down your goals and think into multiple segments. uh, India is huge, as you rightly said, and every demography, every state has its own thought process, own jurisdiction, own paying capacity. Everything is different when you move from, even from north to south, east to west. So don't think India as just one thing. You'll have to break it down into multiple components and focus on the strength of each area. Probably there are language barriers, there are paying capacity barriers, there's so many things that differentiates one location to the other. So when you're thinking from any a startup idea from an Indian perspective, then please think from the fact that you need to constantly solve that challenge bit by bit, area by area, state by state, and not the whole country wise.
Got it. Yes, sir. So that was it from the question side. We do not have any more questions. It was lovely having you. It
Sure.
was really a productive session, and I think we should conclude this meeting. Any last words, wise words for the audience we have?
It's, as I said, it's not the lack of resources, it's the lack of resourcefulness. And if you can make money with no money, then there will be money chasing after you when you have made a little money. Just remember this, and you will be good to go.
Amazing. Yes, sir. So I think we should end this meeting.
Sure.
And it was lovely having you. We will contact you for upcoming sessions too if we have slots. And
Sure.
like to be honest, it was fabulous,
No,
amazing.
good. Hope I was able to help some of you out there.
Yeah. Yes, sir. It was amazing.
Sure. Pleasure, guys. Thank you. Thank you for having me over here. It was wonderful to speak to you.